Hello, citizens. How are you all doing? Before we get started, go ahead and leave a like down below because that helps a lot to spread this content to more City supporters. And if you live and breathe football, love following the transfer market and want to stay on top of every move that could change the club's future, subscribe now and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates. With that done, let's go straight to the point, because today there is heavy behind-the-scenes information, medium and long-term planning, and two names that could redefine Manchester City's midfield in the coming years. Manchester City did not become a powerhouse out of nowhere. Behind the trophies, the big wins, and the star-studded squad, there is extremely cold, calculated, and almost surgical work when it comes to choosing who comes in to strengthen the team. It is not just about signing whoever is fashionable, but about finding players who fit perfectly into the style of play, who understand what the manager wants, and who still have room to grow within the system. And it is exactly for this reason that right now, the club's attention is turned to two different profiles, but with something in common, the possibility of defining an era at the Etihad. On one side, there is the bet on South American football, on a young, intense defensive midfielder with the personality to command the center of the pitch. On the other, there is a French midfielder who is still a teenager, but with a tactical maturity that impresses anyone who closely follows European football. And what is most interesting is that these two clues reveal at the same time the present and the future of how City intend to continue dominating both the Premier League and Europe. Starting with South America, the club's scouting machine is working heavily in Argentina. Among so many gems scattered across the continent, one name has started to be repeated with more and more force in internal conversations: Milton Delgado, a 20-year-old defensive midfielder, a standout at Boca Juniors and one of the most talked-about players among scouts who follow youth football and the transition to the professional level. It is not today that City have looked at this market with care, but now the level of attention has gone up a notch. Milton Delgado is not just another promising youngster. Within Boca, he is already seen as a key piece in the process of renewing the midfield. And what caught City's attention was precisely the combination of attributes he offers. He has that traditional Argentine grit, that desire to fight for every ball as if it were the last. But it does not stop there. Beyond his strength in duels, he has a very advanced reading of the game for his age and a technical ability that allows him to start moves from the first line with calmness, vision, and precision. If you know Manchester City's style of play, you can already see where this story starts to connect. The system led by Guardiola demands that midfielders be much more than simple destroyers. It is not enough just to win the ball back. You have to think quickly, make decisions under pressure, turn your body to escape the press, find passing lanes where very few people see space. The ideal defensive midfielder for this model needs to be, at the same time, a shield and a brain, protection and creative engine. And Delgado begins to fit exactly into this profile. According to information circulating in the media that closely follow Argentine football and the European market, City are monitoring every step of the young midfielder. It is not a superficial interest. The club are carefully studying his minutes played, performances in big matches, capacity to adapt, personality on the pitch, and even his attitude off it. All of this matters when it comes to investing in a name for the future. And internally, Delgado is already seen as a possible strategic piece for the next squad cycle. One of the main reasons for this excitement is that he would not be signed to arrive and solve everything immediately, but to be molded. At 20 years of age, he is at the ideal point to go through a development process within an environment of the highest level, with a training structure that is among the best in the world, and surrounded by players who can accelerate his growth. City have already proven, in recent cases, that they know how to handle this transition, turning potential into reality. There is also a financial aspect that makes this operation even more tempting. Delgado has, in his contract with Boca Juniors, a release clause in the region of 17.2 million euros. For the reality of most South American clubs, that is a very high figure. But for Manchester City's financial power, this amount is treated as an almost irresistible market opportunity. We are talking about a midfielder with international projection, who has already stood out in youth competitions at world level, available for a fee that, if he explodes in Europe, will quickly be seen as a bargain. Imagine the scenario. City invest around 17.2 million in a player with this potential. Develop him over a few years in the Premier League, and then see him established as one of the best in his position. In footballing terms, you gain a starter, or, at the very least, a top-level rotation player. Financially, his market value could easily triple or quadruple if his performances match expectations. This type of strategy is already part of how the club move in the market, alternating signings of immediate impact with investments in talents that will break out in the medium term. From a tactical point of view, Delgado stands out above all for his ability to make the game flow from deep. He is that defensive midfielder who drops between or close to the center backs, offers himself as an option under pressure, receives with his back to goal and, instead of panicking, finds the vertical pass between the lines, breaking the first line of the press. He also has the power to carry the ball forwards for a few meters when he spots space, drawing opponents towards him and freeing teammates in better positions. In a side that lives off control, possession, and quick circulation, this kind of profile is gold. Defensively, he does not hide. He likes physical contact, goes in strong, has good awareness of cover, and can read some passes in advance, cutting out moves before they even become dangerous. That reduces the need to sprint back in transitions, something critical in a team that play with a high line and spend a lot of time in the opposition half. Adding that to his passing ability and calmness on the ball, it becomes clear why City have started to look at him with such interest. Another relevant aspect is the mental side. People who work closely with Delgado say he is a focused, disciplined, and ambitious player. It is not just about natural talent, but about someone who wants to evolve, who accepts being pushed, and who looks to improve the finer details of his game season after season. This mentality is essential to survive in a squad where competition for places is huge and where the standards are extremely high. Of course, from Boca Juniors' side, the situation is far from simple. Losing a player like this at the beginning of his career is always painful. The club know they have a gem in their hands and, even with a release clause already set, there is the whole emotional side, the sporting project, and the relationship with the fans. However, the market speaks loudly, and the financial reality of South American football often forces clubs to sell earlier than they would like, especially when the interest comes from European giants with enormous financial strength. If Manchester City really decide to press the green button and move forward with an offer, they will have in their hands the chance to reinforce the midfield with a talent who combines intensity, technique, and room for growth. Delgado could initially arrive as a rotation option, picking up minutes in domestic cups, coming on in games that are already under control and adapting to the pace of the Premier League. As he absorbs the tactical concepts and gains confidence, he could, in time, become a regular presence in the starting 11. And here we come to a point that also weighs heavily in the club's internal analysis: succession planning. No elite squad can depend forever on the same midfield pieces. It is necessary to anticipate today who will be carrying that sector 3, 4, 5 years from now. Signing someone like Delgado now is, in practice, planting a seed that can bear fruit at the moment when some of the current reference players start to lose space or decide to look for new challenges. At the same time as they keep an eye on the South American market in search of this modern profile defensive midfielder, Manchester City also maintain an extremely sharp radar on what is happening in Europe. And this is where the second name gaining strength in internal discussions comes in: Ayoub Buaddi, the young Lille midfielder who, despite his age, has already made a lot of noise among the continent's biggest clubs. Buaddi is the type of player you might underestimate if you only look at the date of birth on his passport. But it is enough to watch a few of his matches to understand why so many giants are starting to move. At just 18 years old, he shows a maturity on the ball and an understanding of space on the pitch that usually appear much later in most players' careers. It is as if he is already 1 or 2 steps ahead in reading what is going to happen in each move. What is most impressive is the way he operates in crowded areas. Instead of getting rid of the ball any old way when he is surrounded by markers, Buaddi manages to stay calm, make the right turn, shield the ball with his body, and find a short, accurate pass to keep the move alive. In the context of modern football, where the midfield becomes a real battlefield, this is an extremely valued quality. And guess which kind of manager loves this profile? Exactly the one who is in charge at Manchester City. City's interest in Buaddi did not appear from nowhere. The player has already been closely monitored by other Premier League giants, such as Chelsea and Arsenal, who see him as a future starter. The difference is that when Manchester City put a name of this level on their radar, the competition changes completely. The club have the structure, a winning sporting project, a competitive squad, and a track record of developing young players that weighs heavily when it is time for the footballer to make a decision. Within Lille, Buaddi has been earning his place gradually but consistently. It is not a case of one good game and then several anonymous ones. On the contrary, the evolution has been constant. Under the current manager, he has been shaped to play in different roles in midfield, whether as an interior with more freedom to get forward or as a deeper playmaker, responsible for giving that first quality touch in the build-up. This versatility in itself already makes him an even more attractive target for City. Beyond the club level, the French national team have also begun to recognize the size of Buaddi's potential. He is already mentioned as a strong candidate to join, in the near future, the senior squad cycle after the next World Cup. When such a young player is already being talked about in that context, it almost acts as a seal of quality. City pay close attention to this kind of sign because it indicates not only talent, but also the capacity to establish himself among the best in the world. With so many big clubs looking at him, one thing is clear. It is very hard to imagine Buaddi staying at Lille for many more years. The natural tendency is that, at some point, one of the giants will step forward and put an irresistible proposal on the table. And this is exactly where Manchester City's dilemma lies. Move quickly. Try to get ahead of the competition and close a deal before the price goes up too much, or wait a bit longer, running the risk of losing the player to another club willing to take the lead in negotiations. And if you have made it this far, it is because you really care about the club's future and you enjoy this kind of more in-depth analysis of the behind-the-scenes and the market. So, before you leave the video, do not forget to drop a like, because that shows the platform this content is worth recommending to more supporters like you. Also, take the chance to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, so you are always one step ahead, knowing about the latest news, potential signings, and everything that could change the course of the season. The next big move may be closer than it seems, and you will not want to be the last to find out.